Mick Gavin, or Michael Gavin, a.k.a. Mick Gavin, who worked for the Rutherford County Historical Restoration Society, I believe is what the whole big title. Was a friend of mine from the farm. We had worked together off and on years, you know, the whole time I was there, the 10 years I lived there. We worked off and on together, and he was the kind of the head honcho of the building company, him and another guy. And you know, he knew all. He was one of those kind of folks that could go out and meet with folks and end up coming home, and we would have a barn to build, you know. Very personal, really wonderful guy. Yeah, so he was head of the construction crew, and we had built a number of log buildings over the years, restored them, so we had some continuity there, you know, with doing that kind of stuff. And then he left the farm and started working with the Rutherford County Historical Society. And I knew of that. You know, I would probably see Michael when he was living on the farm. And even when he wasn't, I would see him when I would go down. You know, at Christmas time and Ragweed Festival. I would always see. You know, we would always chat and catch up, and so I knew what he was doing. So it was like, you know, I've got this good friend. Remember when he came up and looked at the cabin and did all that stuff with us? And he actually went through the whole community, walking and suggesting things that might happen to different buildings. Just, you know, kind of giving them a checkout. And that's when he came and looked at the cabin. But we specifically wanted him to come up and look at the barn. So I went down there to his office and chatted him up and went to lunch. And he came up, who knows when, months later probably, and, you know, gave us a talk about our barn and told us how it was built and kind of when it was built and what little improvements we could make on it, because he said it was a really together structure, and he wouldn't fuss with it. He would just let it go. He was kind of the head of the building crew for a long time, and so he was kind of wheeled and dealed and got jobs for us, and then our crew would go out and go do whatever he got going for us, you know. And then he would go get the checks and come home and give them to his wife, who was the bank lady, and we would feed the farm with that money. We didn't get any of it.
The farm got it, though.
The farm got it.
And then it was sort of...
It was more or less, it was all volunteer. You volunteered to do what you were doing. You got no monetary gratification other than, you know, I had no idea how much I was making an hour, ever.
Yeah.
It was never a question.
And now, he wasn't someone that was doing the same thing right alongside of you? He was...
At times.
Oh, he was then.
At times he would take a crew on, you know, because say we were running low on money, and there was some work out there. You know, this is back in the 70s, and there was some work. And now he would take a crew on and take a crew out and, you know, go off and build a house. There were these folks that were going, oh, this barn is blah, 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 blah. It's falling down. It's like decrepit. We might as well just take it apart and forget it. And it was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think you got an old barn here. Okay,
look
so...
look at this piece right here. See that? This
That's a puncheon.
This was the floor in here.
Yeah, it's a puncheon.
Pieces of those all
How
side
many more
by
you got?
side. Unfortunately, I don't know where the other ones are.
I've only seen 3 buildings in my whole career that had puncheon floors.
Okay.
And they're all barns. They used to be in houses.
Boutique's got a dungeon
floor in that
The
room.
floor in this room here.
Yeah,
You can actually see
absolutely correct. Very cool. Okay, it's early for sure.
Yeah.
Now that I'm looking at the different elements, like
Uh-huh.
one element's not going to tell you anything, but the preponderance of evidence can show you how authentic it is, and I'm with you on this one. So, what do we got to do to keep it?
It doesn't, that doesn't.
No, floors aren't structural. They're just for your convenience.
Okay.
We can live on dirt.
Okay.
You know, it's just for our convenience that we do that. What are y'all making, adobe?
And Dazzle has a house that these are the forms that made
Oh.
the addition with that. Maybe that's
You didn't tell him?
I did.
We tried Adobe. Oh, God. That didn't work. Bless your heart.
But it's not, it's.
I'm with you on a literary basis. Man, the logs in here, you see what they are? They're rived. They rived all these logs. Well, they split them out.
Okay, oh, okay.
This could be. So that could, oh, I see how they did it. They split them in half. Maybe 1825 would have been like the earliest. Supposedly the Shakers invented that.
Right, that's what I heard.
Some Shaker woman. So maybe that one's, maybe the hewn one is the earliest one because, I mean, not maybe, almost definitely the hewn one is early. Because the old timers they were in dressing it up. But as time goes on, people go, what the hell are we hewing the logs for in the damn barn?
And so they put a floor in this first section. Then.
Yeah, see, they're storing
Might have been
corn
the-
in there.
Oh, okay.
If there's a floor in there, they're storing corn. So then when you study, these guys are so funny. Folklorists will call this half lunate. Get it? The moon, half moon. Because what they don't realize is it's just a half dovetail notch on a split log. It's not a special notch at all. But there's the difference between guys that never did anything, that study it from the outside, as opposed to somebody that's doing it and wonders, what do you call it? It's just a notch. They thought they were boilers. How long y'all been here? 30 years? Where'd it go? You haven't done anything.
I mean, should we point out some of the things that we are concerned with?
Yeah,
the corners.
absolutely.
There's that one over there. Opinion on the foundation on the other side.
Okay.
of this
Without a doubt.
area.
I will answer all questions or I won't. Because I don't know. And I'll tell you if I don't know. I'll tell you what I'm guessing. Yeah, we could stick another log in here. Like they stuck a few logs in here. But they want to hold, because of the hill. Because, logs are just made up every other one. But, what are we looking at?
Like this, like a broken log,
Oh, that broken, oh, I see.
like these corners and things.
Looks like the guy, well, I guess that's, I don't know why that did that.
And there's a
This
few
is
more.
definitely the worst section of the barn.
Yeah.
This-
Yeah, and you know
And you
why?
think it's
I
the
think
old-
it's the oldest section. I really do for a couple reasons.
And it was probably built
And the roughest
one at a
stuff.
time, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
And all tied together?
They would have done, yeah, to me, I think they would have done the first two first, and then they would have added on to the back,
Okay.
making, the Fort Crib thing. But like I say, you usually find these in the Tennessee River Valley and not up on top of the mountain. But
How about this
up
end?
in hill.
These ends over here.
Come to think of it, there is,
I don't want to hurt them.
A mile away.
Do they
A
kick-
mile
do
away.
They kick like horses around. I know goats are
they're
not.
pets.
She
They're
just wants.
pets.
She just wants you to pay attention to her.
Well, I'm sorry, honey, but I'm busy. Man, it's not gonna go anywhere. But this corner is shifting.
Yeah. Well, there's logs around on the outside.
Excuse me. Bracing it pretty good. The worst I think that could happen is the bottom could blow out, and I don't see it. It's tilting this way, like that, but unless that bottom kicked out, I wouldn't fool with it. Because I'll tell you the truth, if you should have what I would call a catastrophic failure, that is, it just blows on you, it's still not really gonna go anywhere, because it's all tied together. it's gestalt. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So, and plus you put bracing up on it. And this is a rather extensive bracing system, this double shed. So I tend to think that the barn would retain its integrity even if it loses little pieces. And then I think, you know, my advice is, why look for trouble? Because we've got plenty to do. So unless you're bored, I mean, if you guys are bored one summer and you want a good project, this could be it. But I wouldn't be the first one to start. I'd let the barn pick the fight with me, rather than me pick it with them. What were you gonna say?
One thing we've been talking about is if it would help to take this goat shed off. Do you think? But I hear you saying that maybe the.
No, I think it's helping it.
It's bracing it up.
I think it's bracing it up. I think it's a very positive thing. It was so funny going back to Jersey, man. There's my peeps. Now, I've been in Tennessee for 40 years, and this is how I figure it. Go back to Jersey. I understand those people completely. I just don't like them. Then I come back home to the South, and I love my neighbors, but I don't understand them at all. Yeah, let's go over there.
A beam. Was it a beam, right?
Well, you know, I was looking at the way, you know, it was out of plumb, because I'm an orderly guy, and I like level and plumb ordinarily. But if the barn's 200 years old or 150 years old, I guess you're going to live with it. It's melted in it. You know, we found that out. Once we start
Today. Yesterday.
So you can see how this progressed, stepping down.
You know, I looked at a picture.
That's probably red, though.
It's white.
It's white?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it'll last for a
So
while.
he was living there at Twin Oaks. He probably had to make
Hey, no offense, bro.
He had to make
I didn't know I was going to get called right out.
48 hours
I'm
a
a
week.
jerk.
He had to do 48 hours a week.
42.
42. Oh, they're dropped down,
Yeah.
haven't they? 6 hours
42?
less.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're down to 42 hours a week.
Yeah, we're down to 37 and a half. State worker.
Oh, nice.
So are
Get
there
paid
any
for
things that
40?
we can do that are small scale to help the longevity of the barn?
We can always replace wood kind of things, right? That oak that are
Yeah.
rounded at the bottom or out front.
I mean, there's a reason why they knocked that siding off and all on the small ends there, because in a way that would have been the easiest. Maybe they just wanted, I don't know. They could have been storing corn in there for the longest time. But that's the only reason I see having a floored crib is to store corn. They had a cross, it was four square, so it was, like you said, cruciform cross shape, and they could go in both sides. But they quickly realized what a waste of space that is, when you think about it.
We only had to go in one time.
Yeah, so quickly, yeah, see, if you get rid of the cross aisle, you gain 2 cribs.
Yeah.
I mean, so great, so I'll just go this way, you know, instead of, you know, going around 90-degree entrance. And it's the same thing in your house. I mean, I treat, you know, square foot is square foot. So quickly the guys realized that like I said, it didn't work, and now they're all drive-through barns. But you could store a lot of equipment. You know, equipment, park 4 cars in there.
That beam across the entranceway there, does that need replaced then?
Well, let's look at it.
Looks pretty thin.
Well, yeah. So the floor is on the wood, and the beam, all that beam is built. You're nailing that to it.
Yeah, okay.
And what happens is, if you nail that to the bottom, the roof will hold.
We had it painted 25 years ago. But it's starting to leak. So we painted it 25 years ago. It was already.
I'll tell you what. They're just breaking it down. It's only plastic. The print sounds great, but it's only plastic.
You mean you think the tin might be okay?
I think the tin is okay. This is terrible. In a way, if you don't get good purchase, in other words, if the wood underneath it is rotten or something, leave that in place and move up with a new one and drive it in. You're going to have to re-nail this thing on a semi-regular basis. and I don't mean every 6 months, probably every few years. Once the heads start sticking up, go on up there and down. And you know how to work off that, right, Ken? Just make a chicken ladder and work off of it.
We got us a rope up there. We got an iron. We just do a rope and
Take a ladder and take 2 hooks on it, throw the hooks over the top, and work off the ladder. Don't
Yeah.
You know, he'll do a
Chicken
Nantucket sleigh ride sooner or later. You wanted a skylight evidently,
Yeah,
but
right.
it isn't worth it. Yeah. But it's the same pattern as that, so
Yeah.
you slip a couple in there. I think you're pretty all right, unless you want to, once again, unless you want to spend the money.
okay.
It's up to y'all. But I think you get good service out of this. I think you can put money into this right now and not really get anything. And that's why, you know, it's sort of my fiduciary duty to tell you that.
Well, that's what we needed to know that. So then painting it with that aluminum kind of.
I
paint,
would, yeah.
that aluminum
That's the
paint.
best. I really like that. But first, nail it down right.
Okay.
And you may find that some of those lathing is rotten. It might even be worth it to pull the metal up and put new lathing down. If some is rotten. It didn't really look like it.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
I think you could pretty much go with it. But he's done.
And
Weeders
25
built many
years
a
ago,
barn, I'll tell you.
We had people who came around and for $250 they sprayed this.
Don't ever spray.
But the spray is not it wasn't. I mean,
You know where
it was
90% of the paint goes?
in the air, right? Okay. Yeah. An area that he looked at 3 years ago, and
Here a while, yeah. They've been doing it. I was wondering if you're still here. We both changed a little bit. Got a little...
Said you could take this barn and you could push it around the knoll with a bulldozer and it wouldn't come apart. Remember that? Yeah. Well, I mean, he thought it was a great barn and that we really shouldn't do anything to it. You know, we might, you know, like I think they added a little wing off to do some stuff, create a shaded spot or something like that, but I think that's really all they ever did. But I mean, they had huge plans for it. And, you know, having him come out and say, hey, you know, you really, this is a great structure. You guys
Don't want to alter it.
really need to, you could go up there and you could maybe do some work on your tin. I think some of that came down, which is really true. But I think that was, and then there might have been a few, like, loft supports or something like that. And, I mean, it gave us kind of a whole education about, you know, how they started out with building this square. And then they went down and they built this square. And then they built the 2 back squares, maybe. You know, because they were so similar
Right.
in construction.
Yeah.
And then they put a roof on it.